All right, so we're not starting yet, but I want to collect some ideas. We're going to try to recruit people to do lightning talks next month. And so sometimes it's good to have a list of things like you would like somebody to talk about that might spur them on. So I'm wondering if anybody has anything of course, if you have a topic you want to talk about, save it and you can just sign up with it. But if there's something you'd like somebody to talk about, I want to encourage people. I want somebody to talk about the new Cider debugger, which was pretty cool.
Is that
the one that it's in Emacs and Cider, you can instrument a function and step through it. It's more of like an expression. It's very expression based. So each expression, before it evaluates, you have a chance to stop it or replace and when it returns, you can replace the value. Right?
Gotcha.
You can do a few simple things, but I think that's very interesting because it's sad that that's the best option, but
for line? So
yeah. Is there any ideas that you want that you hope somebody might pick up as a lightning talk? Nothing?
I'm not deep enough in the Clojure world these days.
We'll try to fill it out and try to get some people to talk about things. So.
I'm still curious about the parsing stuff. I think there was a library we discussed briefly at one point.
Instaparse?
Yeah, and I think it now works on Clojure script too. So that'd be interesting to whip out a quick little parser in that library.
We're brainstorming for things to try to. This is your wish list. This is the list where everybody So for people whose only excuse is I can't think of anything, we'll provide them something to think of. So then they just have to come up with another excuse. But still,
I think that's generated. They have to think of an excuse.
Some ideas. I don't know if we've already talked about it or not. How about 1.7 features? Clojure 1.7 stuff?
There was one. There's one in particular that was really into. What is it? The reader. It's the reader thing.
Reader expressions.
Reader. Yeah.
Oh, is that going in?
Yeah.
That's the CLJX kind of thing.
Yeah. So what's different about that than like a macro?
I think what it is it's a common. It took code where you can write common code between Clojure script and Clojure.
Yeah, they're called feature expressions.
Feature expression.
Nice.
There you go.
Okay. So this is the one that I thought would be most into feature. Were there any other 1.7 features? So where is the 1.7
There's
list?
core generator functions.
Yeah, it's down there, kind of vector guest. And then that's a factory.
Core generator functions are in there.
Core generator, what's that?
It seems to be working on it, so.
They're made reducible.
They're on 1.7.
Yeah, so they're official, right? Yeah, somebody talked about it, but now...
Yeah, we've already talked about it.
Transducers are in there finally.
Yeah.
Somebody might want to refresh us and now that we could actually potentially use it. Anything you want somebody to talk about for a lightning talk?
Macros, what they are, what they do.
All right.
So, another one would be like core types, or I think there's another kind of similar one called schema.
Prismatic schema.
Yeah.
Yeah, we use prismatic schema. We don't use core type.
Are those the same thing? Or did you
They're different. I put it or we've had at least one small. I think Reed perhaps gave a core type to something, but there's always room for more. Yeah, because it's different people, different perspective, different applications, different ability for your mind to absorb it.
Is it more of a Erlang kind of a thing where you put the hints in and you have some sort of static analysis to analyze, or is it like a runtime?
So core type is more like the Erlang type.
Okay.
Annotations. Yeah, exactly. But prismatic schema is more like a data validation. So validating a specific piece of data has a certain
like this
structure.
Can be an int or
It's not.
Three fields.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so for instance, we do that. We run all of the, we use it in two places. We run all of the things that we're going to push into Elasticsearch through our prismatic schema to make sure that we have the data structure right, what we want, coming in, so we can, we know that our data store has some, some moderate level of sense. And we also use it for our service startup, like our service configurations. We will run, because we'll have these records, and they'll load from map data and configuration data, and we want to sort of validate our configurations. But it's more like a data. It's almost more like core types for data than it is than it is for validating program flow and function return values. There's no inferencing or anything like that.
Sounds like more like a schema language.
Yeah. It's basically I mean, prismatic it's basically the idea there.
Still pretty cool. So.
Any lightning talk requests, things that you want people to talk about?
That's how I felt.
Anything you've been like, I really want to know about this?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I would generalize debugging.
Component, like the Stuart Sierra?
Yeah.
That's actually,
The cider debugger is one of the things there was.
Yeah.
Kind of some sort of
It's a little bit like the OS.
I'm interested in debugging in general. I haven't really found a good approach. I mean, I also don't use Emacs.
Okay.
So I think cider is Emacs.
Yeah. So I don't know, Sam. Is there anything new in the debugging world for since your last one?
There's been one update.
Anything interesting there?
Yeah, the expression thing works now, and he's doing a talk this week
At Clojure West.
So
yeah, is anybody going to Clojure West? What? No, Dar's going. It's a leading question because I know Dar's going. If there's something you want Dar to pay attention to there,
you should go
when
to
he
the
comes back, he'll
talk.
tell us what he which talk. Their typical thing is when we come back, we get somebody to tell us what talks you should be like looking out for the videos for most. But if there's something you really want him to pay attention to,
Could you get the schedule? Maybe we can look at it.
all right, Dar, we're gonna plan your trip for you.
Cool.
Still mind meld with Rich Hickey and then come back and
You got it. Just spread the meld around.
spread the meld around.
just don't get in the hammock with him.
I'm also doing two of the
Trainings.
It's macros and core async. The O one's booked up, but if somebody doesn't make it, I'm first on the waiting list.
Uh,
I might do a few.
You'd probably just sneak in and.
Is his home pretty much just like running pedestal?
It's pretty, the client side of the pedestal is pretty much, not there anymore.
Because I had a nice
I don't think anybody,
and then that all went away.
no, I don't think anybody outside of the whatever the Cognitech ever used it for anything.
Well,
We tried, we had a pedestal hack day, but we did not make progress.
Okay.
So I think that's a lie. Okay, so
So if anybody wants like a macros or core async session, I could maybe boil down what I learned in there and do that as well.
all right, yeah. So you could actually do like a little knowledge dump in addition to just giving us like a what you
Macros mind meld.
programming Clojure small talk style. Sam, why aren't you up there?
Okay.
Honey SQL, I've heard a lot about that. Boot, like I don't like boot.
Is that what is that alternative?
No, I just dislike it on principle.
It's like an alternative to like it, right?
Yes, and that's why I just
That's why I just like it.
yeah, I feel like
Okay.
Leiningen is like the great, like it is like so great. It is like the unassailable, holy, piece of Clojure, right? You cannot. Yeah, exactly. You cannot blaspheme the Leiningen.
Where can Leiningen fight you?
Nowhere. It's the perfect. So I'm actually in the Leiningen is not perfect. I'm writing a Leiningen plugin right now, and I can tell you, it's the insides of it are pretty hairy. It's a real duct tape, sort of contraption, but you still cannot replace it with boot. If anybody uses boot, you're out of the group. No, I say that, but I pretty much just avoided learning anything. It's like the la, I can't hear you, boot does not exist, not any actual thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, then put that on your wish list. You should write a boot plugin and compare.
All right, well, we'll put it up there.
Somehow that doesn't sound motivated.
Well, I don't write a Leiningen.
Does that mean we're giving
Or there might be another one. How do you write a Leiningen plugin? What does that entail?
Okay, boot's on there. Leiningen. Yeah, I was trying to decide if I want to do this as my lightning talk or if I want to do like a larger Leiningen thing, but since I have one up, I'll work on it.
One of the places I heard that it can bite you is in the parameters that enhance the JVM. The specifics of the parameters can detune your garbage collection and your JIT optimization.
Yeah, you can. You have some control over. You have control over that, and whether it launches a new process or runs it in process. There are some things, but yeah, we actually don't run in. We don't actually run Leiningen in production. We just use it in for dev, but so it doesn't really. I guess there's probably some sides of that usage that I'm personally not as familiar with.
We like to ahead of time compile the jar or something like that.
Yeah, we Uber jar, which is a problem. So this is exactly the problem my new super awesome Leiningen plugin is solving, because jars. When you Uber jar, it puts everything, all dependencies, everything into one jar. Of course, Clojure creates a lot of class files, right? Well, it turns out that there's a limit to the number of files you can put in a jar. It happens to be this magic number, 65,535.
Zip file limit.
Yeah, it is. Well, yeah, it's a 16-bit. So Java 8 uses zip 64 or something, but Java 7 doesn't do this. Well, we're not quite able to go to Java 8, so I have to create another sort of deployment option, and so I have to have a new Leiningen plugin to create this, because that will use the manifest. And anyways, when I talk about it, we'll eventually get there.
Uber jar in the mobile.
Yeah. I call it the meta jar because it uses the manifest, the meta-inf manifest to link to dependencies, and so I have to copy the dependencies into because it has to be relative, and it's Java 6.
Lost screen.
Okay. All right. So, anyways, we're looking through talks for DAR. Purely random. I don't even know. Staying safe, a foundation for wow. Man, I wish I could go. Responsive grid, Garden.
I think the
Debugging Clojure code with cursive? Do what?
domain-specific type systems, it's like DSL, but it's domain-specific types, and that seems pretty cool. I've been interviewing people for Eric Norman has a mailing list, pre-Clojure West. I've been having him interview people, so I can't go. I ask questions, so it's kind of fun. So that one's pretty good. And something kind of a Clojure Bridge curriculum.
Is this
Yoko.
Yeah, okay.
Students have kind of which this is a, and there's a person, there's
Everything will flow about.
Big wheel. How Clojure saved my chickens? DAR. We need to know about how Clojure saved somebody's chickens.
I got chicken soda.
Yeah, exactly. This is very relevant. We don't want lost chickens.
Wednesday at 9. What is everything will flow?
I'm sure some sort of data flow, queues. queuing theory, practical application to the Clojure system. I'm guessing it's one of his libraries for creating a data flow where you say like this thing, this data here, you process it and it sends it to this one. But Dar will report back on that.
So sort of like.
So we've decided which talks you're going to go to. So if you go to anything else, it's on video. We've got it all, so you can't you can't. Yeah. And of course, sometimes we have you going to 2 talks simultaneously. So that's going to be good. No, but that gives you some idea what people are interested in. So even if you don't go to something and you overhear or something, it would be good to keep it posted later. Yeah.
Will the talks be posted later, perhaps?
They haven't said it, I think, but they usually are, and now they have been posting them like the next day. Yeah, they used to make you wait like all through the year for the videos.
What's the point?
Yeah, well, the point was that it was for InfoQ, and InfoQ wants you to come back to their site over and over and over to sell you advertising, and they decided, but now they're doing the videos themselves, and they can just release them. So, advertising, they want your eyeballs. But now. Yeah, no, I think early on they didn't have either the funds or the people to do that, so they had to rely on outside people. But now it's Cognitech, so I'm guessing Cognitech is funding the videos, and they just want to get the content out there quickly.
Is Clojure West in Portland every year, or is it the first time?
It was in Portland last year, and
in San Francisco before that.
Yeah, it was San Jose. Yeah. So I went to the San Jose one and the Portland one, but I missed one. So this must be the 4th Clojure West. Maybe it's been in Portland for 3 years. I forget now.
Oh, by the way, I asked him, could we do a Clojure South in Austin? And they said they've talked about that, but people on the East Coast didn't want to fly to Austin. So we had RailsConf here.
Listen, if you're on the video and you're from the West Coast, okay.
So I tried to get it to come here, but they were like, no, it's too far.
Yeah.
All right.
Too hard.
Oh, lazy people. All right, so that's talks back. Anything else for our wish list? Okay, so now we need people to sign up for talks. So far, Nick is going to tell us about CSV parsing next month as the price for his free Clojure consulting.
I'm all in.
No, I think that semantic CSV library is actually very interesting because I've had to parse CSV and I had to use a Java thing to do that.
Did you see the thing I said back to you about that amplified?
Yeah. I
thought that was kind of handy. So.
Yeah. And I think we'll see when we look at the code, but I think using keywords from outside data is generally not a good thing.
Well, it was sort of weird. I didn't know you could make a keyword with a space in it, and then I was like, how the hell do you represent that without saying?
Well, it can't be printed safely.
Exactly. That was the problem.
Yeah. So Reed volunteered to talk about Gutentag and schema contracts, and I didn't bother to look up what Gutentag was. That's all going to be really, I guess it's some kind of schema system. All right, we probably need at least four, but 4 to 6 would be a good number, so.
I'll do the Instaparse one.
Instaparse.
With the critical caveat that I may or may not make it. If I don't make it, I'll do it the next time.
All right, so next, what other topic do we have somebody?
I'll do debugging Insider.
Oh, awesome.
How long are the talks supposed to be?
Anywhere from 5 minutes to 15 minutes. Like, whatever you need to, I'm blanking. Her name.
Peter.
I got it last time.
It's good. Terrible with names.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Anybody else?
I'll talk about boot.
Troll. Eric T. Troll. T for the. Or Tiberius, I don't know. No, actually that would be very interesting. I am teasing you. All right. One more, somebody? Anybody? I see lots of eyes not looking at me.
It's like school all over again.
Maybe?
I'm going to talk about SQL library. Korma or HoneySQL or yes.
Yes.
SQL.
Okay. So honey.
Oh, yes.
SQL.
Maybe I can compare all those.
Was it SQL?
Yeah. I don't put fast. Have you noticed? Okay, good.
All right.
This is wish list for talks.
No, this is the actual talks. This is the wish list of things somebody are wishing, like you personally would pick one. And I'm simultaneously pointing to everybody when I say you. So somebody has requested that.
I can say y'all.
Y'all. Well, y'all better get some talks up here on the board. No, that's pretty good. If anybody does want to add one up here, I will. I may add mine, or I'll probably ask around later and see if mine can be bigger. Well, let me put it on anyways. All right. So if you think of something you want to talk about, just let us know. And if we've got a good number, so if something comes up and you want to push yours, we'll probably do another one 3 or 4 months down the road. So, and we're still also looking for full talks. I mean, we don't really have much of a backlog right now. So if you have a longer talk, like our volunteer to do a write your own Lisp talk later, we'll be.
have like 3 more lists, 4 more lists.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. If you've got a Lisp you want to talk about, and you don't want to do a full talk, you can also do you can do our 3rd of 7 Lisps here. So just send me a note, and I'll add you to the list. And if you need to change your topic or move off, that is fine.
I think it'd be awesome for somebody to do a Lisp flavored Erlang, but I'm not volunteering for that. That'd be like,
There are a couple of those.
well, I was thinking of the one with Robert Birding, the one that he did. Well, at least the most recent one that he did.
All right, so
yeah, LFP.io.
I'm gonna shut the door real quick. So moving on then, since I think we've got our talks up. Next agenda item was open questions. So this is the chance if somebody has a Clojure question. So far we haven't had a lot of them, but I guess that's because everybody knows everything about Clojure and just comes here with no questions at all. So does anybody have a Clojure question they want to raise to the group?
I have a question. If I have a big, deeply nested map and I want to modify it, what's the best way to do that?
How do you want to modify it? Like what kind of thing do you want to do to it?
I have a giant map, and somewhere in the middle, I want to conj something in.
All right.
And then I want to come back out and have the whole map.
Sure. Any ideas?
Yes. Update in.
Update in. So the way update in works. So let's say, let me put up a REPL here.
You already gave me the other side of the question.
The other side is, what if I can't access my thing like that? Like, what if it's like it's not just a map, but a map with vectors and maps?
Do you know the index?
What if there's multiple indexes?
Okay. So you want to do this at multiple places?
Yeah, like I want to say,
Well, to go deep down, you need the index here, then the index here, then the keyword here, then the index here, right?
Right.
Yeah, I basically want to do set kind of algebra on that. Yeah, in the middle of it, and get it all back out.
Zippers.
Yeah, that was what I was saying. So we have a large we do when we have a large data set when the stuff that we do for malware analysis we end up with a large JSON of data, and so we navigate through it using zippers to pull to reach in, and then we get to a certain point and then we might reach down and pull something from different locations. So a zipper would be might be the thing. Maybe you can. Do you have an example of the data that you're trying to process?
Yeah, I put it up in I posted the code in the comments.
Oh, was that in here?
Yeah,
this one.
So basically, like my example is, I want to do time, like I have a start time and an end time on a bunch of stuff that's in this nested map, and I want to know the time span and then state that.
So you got multiple things, right?
So yeah, so it's like I want to.
Do you have data in resources here? Data.
Yeah.
Timesheet.
Yeah, see all those timestamps? I just want to associate in what's the time difference.
On every chunk?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think a zipper is what the right approach, because the zipper, you can navigate to the point, the kind of thing you want. I mean, you can write the code to get down to a point, and then you can call a function on it, and you can rewrite that one thing and then move to the next one. I've got some code to do that, but it's that I could possibly check. I can show you something afterwards, but I can't show it on video because it's from work, and they don't like it when I show work code on what is it with these companies? I mean, yeah, exactly.
You can do it with a tree walk too.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. If you're doing the same thing to each block, if it looks like you are in this case, probably be a little more direct than a zipper.
Yeah, I did like a host walk, and then I do identity if it's this, and function if it's.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So could you use the tree walk, and then one of the things that you emit is the path down into the thing that you're going to change along with the new parameter, right? So that you can then feed that back into update in, to a series of update ins.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, maybe you can't modify it while you're doing the tree walk. I don't know.
Well, I might suggest, just as a suggestion here, later when we do the code kata, if somebody's not feeling the code kata, it's just not resonating with them, maybe sit down and try a couple things, and just get someone, and then just tell us what you tried and what it was. So if that problem sounds interesting, maybe check with John, and when we're doing the kata, maybe you pair up and look at that, because I would love to, because now that we see the data, it's like, okay, we have several ideas. Which one, what's the result of trying some of them? I mean, that would be an interesting thing. But yeah, I think I think that's probably the sum of the possibilities. Yeah. All right. Any other Clojure questions? Since we didn't answer that one. Have we half answered it?
There's never one answer.
Yeah.
So, I think I'm just getting to read about some things that might answer my question, but the design pattern in Java where you have listeners, what are the different equivalents in Clojure? So, what are the type of things I should read about to understand it?
So when you say a listener, you mean, do you want to know when some value changes?
Yes, you want to register a listener on an object.
Okay.
And when it changes. I mean, maybe you don't do that at all in Java. I know we're starting with immutable objects in Java, and in Clojure, but in Java we're starting with immutable objects where we're kind of polling the system instead of doing listeners, so that because we're not really sure how to listen to immutable objects yet. But Clojure deals with a lot of stuff. So.
Does anybody have any ideas?
Watches.
Okay, so let's see, what is it? So on an atom. Or on a var.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so basically, like of course you can't listen. So I don't know much. I don't use this feature. Okay. So maybe Sam could. But of course, like an immutable object, it's never going to change. There's nothing to listen for. But when that's in a var or an atom or something else, there's most of those, as I understand it, I will have to pull it up here, have a way that you can register for a listener on that atom, and when the atom changes, you can perform some action. So
yeah, that's it.
It's like a wrap.
Yeah,
kind of like a wrapper. Or
yeah. So here's an example here. Well, let's plug that. Let's just do this in. So we've got an atom. Okay, so A. So it's an atom, and then we add a watcher to A. Watcher takes a function, it's the key, the atom, the old state, and the new state, and it's just going to print it out. All right, whoop. I think this is a cut and paste kind of thing. Let me put it here.
In Clojure, atoms are one of the few mutable things?
Yeah. Atoms, vars, refs, agents.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can create mutable collections and work with them, but usually you only do that for transient things. If you want to track something change, you give it a name, you put it in a var, you put it in an atom, something like that, right? All right, so I think I've got my watch on here. So now when we reset, so reset sets the value. So reset a, let's just set it to 1. All right. So and you see the change triggered. The old state was an empty map. The new state was 1. right? And that comes up, right? So you could, if you have an atom that's in a well-known place, you can put the watch on that, and when anybody sets it, your things will get triggered. So that would be a...
So you have to be careful about using atoms and things like trees where you're trying to respect the immutable values of
yeah, normally the pattern, I think, would be that you would have your whole tree would be in an atom, right? So not the individual values inside of it. So whenever anything happens on the tree, then you do it. But the individual values, although there probably are, you could probably come up with a use case where you had a map, an immutable map of atoms or something, of names to atoms, like a set of counters or something. I could imagine some use cases like that. So.
But you're right, that concern if you've got that would be reference to an atom. Baked into a tree, an immutable tree. That would be a concern. Now it would just be the atom because you have to actually purposefully dereference it.
So it's kind of counterintuitive to what we're trying to do in Clojure.
So if we had this and it was we have two atoms, right? We have a strange map. Right, so we have that. So if I said, let's see, reset. Okay, so we set that, and now when we look at strange map, the atom should have the 42 value in it. So I mean, you certainly can do this. There might be a case for that, but I would say it's more likely that you want an atom that has x42, y15, I don't know, your coordinate system, I guess. And then you want to update that atom and say, I want to update the x value of this atom.
Right.
I think that's a much more common use case.
If a watch finds an atom change, it doesn't know what piece of it changed, right? It just
Right.
knows that somehow the whole thing changed.
Doesn't it let you see the old state and?
But you'd still have to figure out what the difference is. If it's a big tree of data, you'd have to parse through it somehow, do the tree walk or something like that, right? And I guess because this is a common design pattern in Clojure, you just learn how to think like this, and there's things like memoization or something like that, or give you efficient ways to do it. Like let's say, for example, something we do a lot is we want to know who the parent of a certain object is. And that parent is like 10 levels down in a very wide blue tree. Right now, we're like running an algorithm that goes down the tree, searching the whole tree to find the parent, and it's inefficient, but well, we're not taking advantage of the tricks that Clojure and immutable objects have to make that more efficient, I think. I think that's the solution, right?
I think a diff of a map or something ought to be pretty efficient. I'm not sure, but it just seems like intuitively it would be because they probably share the same structures. Your original map and your new map are going to be almost that. They could probably use equal, like an equal comparison in a lot of the places.
Sometimes diff is surprisingly coarse though. A lot of times, in my experience, it'll find something higher up and it'll just say, the big pieces are different. And it's like, thanks.
Yeah, and if I would suggest if you have this little bit more of an example, put it together. Put something up, a little bit more exhaustive than one. Put it in the comments up here, or even bring it, maybe even, or if this is still something you're interested in next month, bring up, puts a gist up, and we can actually look at something there, and just like that, we might be able to sit down and get a couple people and just put our brains together. All right. Any other Clojure questions? All right. Cool. Yeah, watchers. I don't use watchers. That's although I guess indirectly I've used them with ohm, right? Because that's sort of how ohm tracks state atoms. So. All right. So next up was refactoring Nick's code. So this was, I thought this was really great because when I saw, refactoring. So if you want to follow along, the links to the code are, it's in the, although you'll have to, I just noticed today Nick has already refactored his code based on what I said. So you'll have to actually go to the history and jump back, 2 days. So anything past 2 days ago, I think would be a.
I can repost it.
Oh, yeah. So if you just, or you can, you can look at the hash here. I've got your old code checked out here. So I wanted to take a minute, and I thought we'd just walk through and just like get some ideas and maybe even do some of the refactoring that we know. I thought you had that like what are we doing? Yeah, no. This is really great. Do you want to explain what the code is doing here? Like, what the purpose of the code is?
So I have a CSV file that has a list of inspections of restaurants in the city of Austin that the city's done, and I basically just needed to split it up into one that just contains information about the actual restaurants and their location, and another that contains just the information about each inspection. Every record has all that information sort of duplicated, even though there's a facility ID that can reference the thing over there. And so I really just wanted to get it split into two separate things. So just remove some columns from one CSV, put it in another. It's not like if there were 15 records for 15th Street Cafe, then there'd be 15 entries in the restaurant CSV, but that's okay. I just needed to remove some columns from one and put it in another. That was it. What I'm doing with that later is yet to be decided.
All right, so here's the sample data. So it's a CSV file, and notice this is I thought this was interesting.
It's tricky with the new line thing because the new line doesn't necessarily denote that it's a new record if there's quotes, if it's quoted like that. So, and it is quoted like that. Oh, part of what I wanted to do. It's actually part of what I wanted to do also wasn't just the separating out of the columns, but the address column has the actual street address and then a lat-long coordinate. And I wanted to extract the lat-long coordinate out and put those in their own columns as well. I forgot about that part, but yeah, that's actually the main reason why I was doing that, was to separate that.
All right, so if we call split CSV with data.csv.
So for 60,000 entries, there's 180,000 lines. It's like 3 lines per thing. So maybe it's 2, something crazy.
Sample.csv.
Actually, it might be. I think some of them are 3 and some of them are 2. But all of the CSV parsing libraries handle that like pretty easily. So I was concerned with it.
All right, so here's your first output file. So the first output file, it has the name, the ID, the name, the zip code, the address split out, and the coordinates split out. And the second one has dates and inspection information. So you're taking that initial one and you're processing it a bit and splitting it out into separate files that you can do something else with. All right, so I wanted to look at this, and I've already been through this code, but I wanted to kind of throw it out to the group, and hopefully some of you may have taken some time to look through this. I guess we can walk through the whole code real quick. So split CSV opens the input and output files. It reads the file in, removes comments. Mapify. Mapify is an interesting one in that it takes the CSV data and it turns it into a map. So this could actually be CSV, let's see, CSV/read, CSV sample. Let's do it the same way you do it. Right, so we've got the CSV data in, and then we call Mapify on that, and notice how it puts out these keywords. But notice how it basically takes the columns of the data and in the thing and puts out a bunch of maps. So we've got a series we've got map data like this, and we're trying to transform it into some CSV, right? So this is, Nick will talk about the CSV library next week, but that's the basic idea. So if you got a
Next week or next month?
next month. No, next we're having a special edition.
Next week. Just checking.
By the way, we're going to a weekly meetup, and then if that goes well, we'll actually meet every day. Yeah, so see how it takes everything in the first column and gives it a restaurant name, zip code. But notice how it uses these keys. Yeah. So we were saying I actually also did not know this was possible until a couple months ago. So if you call keyword a foo, that's how you can turn a string into a keyword, right? So you can actually
That's cool.
You can actually keywordize it, right? And now you shouldn't.
Possible to type.
From like a call, like if you wanted to look like on a map.
You say symbol in front of it.
So we can actually so if I have a map that's so the star one, right? So we've got it in there, right? So that's our bad mat. I meant to say bad mat, but we'll go with it. So somebody tell me how would we get that this is terrible out of there? Does anybody know?
Keyword again. Keyword.
Yeah, exactly. So if we say keyword this is terrible from our bad mat, it gets it out. So this is actually
That's what I did.
Yeah, exactly. So I think for me, because I look at this and I'm like, I would say I do not like that. So I would probably use the get form. I would probably prefer to do this, and because I think that would make it a little bit more clear. So we'll see in here. There are actually examples of this in here. So you can see Nick is pulling out exactly using that first. Right? So exactly like you would use a keyword as a function, well, you can create the keyword and use it as a function. But I definitely think this is one of the refactorings I suggested is to turn these all around.
Are you going to turn the next line around too?
What?
Are you going to turn the next lines around too? Then?
This one? Okay. Well, let's.
So you're consistent.
This one? What do you think?
Could you escape the original values?
What?
Could you escape the original strings so that instead of a space you have an underscore or something, then you could use them?
You could transform them. Yeah. That would be a possibility. So
like
what?
A function, a getter function that would wrap all the stuff and stringify or whatever you pass in.
Yeah, so it actually turns out, and this is something that if we look down at Mapify.
Turns out if you read the documentation.
So if we go into Mapify here, you see actually it's got this keyify function. So if we hadn't done that, if we had see if we can get back up to our original data up here. CSV. All right, so if we sc/mapify, and what are the arguments?
That options map, you say keyify false.
And it's at, we pass in the option map.
Yeah.
So keyify false. So we take the last, is it the first arg or the second arg?
I think it's the second. I think it's the second.
Rows is the second thing, so swap those around like that.
Yeah.
There we go. Now you see that it uses strings as the keys, right? And now, of course, we'd have to use, so if we do map get.
Yeah, but you just slowed it down and cropped it. Because of string comparisons.
It's a keyword, but S.
Huh? Keywords are interned, so there's only one instance of them in the system. So it can compare on identity.
I suspect, based on what I know of Java, that there's no.
Does it work that way in Clojure, or just on the JVM?
Yeah, the keywords are interned.
Well, strings are generally are too, but it would be interesting to try it and find out.
Strings in compiled languages are, but not necessarily strings that are written in.
The stuff coming into the keyword is already a string anyway, so.
But you're GCing it, so yeah.
I suspect if we were to what? Yeah, I suspect if we were to look at this would be something if somebody wants to play with it.
That would be interesting to see if because you're right, the string
interning it might be that.
One of the updates in Clojure 7 is referencing improved interning of the keyword.
Is it object ID? What's the?
It's an object ID.
Well, I guess hash code's always going to be the same. How do we? I'm forgetting my Java now.
Hash. It's .hash, I think.
Well, there's hash code, but that's obviously going to be the
Trying to see
same.
if they're immutable.
I was trying to see if they were physically the same object. I don't know how to do that from. I don't know. In Java we could do an equals, but there's not actually an object ID. It was just a hash. There's just hash code and equals. So.
You could do like dot equals or something. Right?
Yeah. Well, dot equals would always be. They would always be the same. Clojure equals is not going to get us. I don't know. We might have to write an actual Java function to do that comparison if we really wanted to verify that if they were all the same object or not. So, homework for somebody, unless somebody knows
You
it.
could do hash X to get the hash code.
Right, but the hash code should always be the same, even if they're different
It's
objects.
just based on the value.
Yeah.
There's an identity function in Clojure.
Identity function returns whatever you pass in.
Yeah.
So identity of 42 would be 42. Yeah, that's interesting. So homework, if anybody has an answer for this, if there's a way to test object equality, well, let's ask Google.
That's what I was doing.
Okay, test object equality in Clojure. Identical. Hey.
There we go.
Okay, identical.
Was close.
First of names, second of names. False. Okay, they are different objects in that case.
So you're going to do the string compare then, right?
But if we intern them, I'm just curious. I think it's.
If you intern them,
I'm just curious, just to satisfy that this is actually
need your dot.
Intern. True. Okay, so we could. They are definitely not equal, but those strings
Sorry
are.
to derail it.
No. That's perfect. That's we're all learning. We're all learning something, right?
What does intern do?
In terms of Java thing, which takes a string and for strings to say the internal. I don't know what. I guess does it come from internal?
It gives an internal identity and make sure there's only one ID that references that string.
Basically, it gives you, if you have the same string, .intern will always return the same object. So in Java, for example, if you have two string literals that are the same value in a class file, they should be interned by the compiler, and you should get the exact same object, not just equal objects, but the same object. And that's what we're testing with identical. So and to remind everybody what names is just a list of strings, right? So they're all equal, right? But they're not first of names and second of names are not the same object.
It makes sense for it not to intern, because as soon as you intern, you're having a memory leak. You expect that to be GC'd, and it never gets GC'd at that point. Because that's just the nature of interning. So.
Right.
I was reading just now, as of Java 7, they keep the intern strings in the non-permgen part of the
Okay.
But then, in order to intern, you'd still have to.
What?
Pick up Morgan.
Cool.
I wouldn't.
So was that a laugh of humor at garbage collection stuff?
One of my most successful but very brief cases was bringing a Java app into repair, and the person that proceeded to notice it during his
Not sure why I keep jumping out there. All right, so anyways, that's what we're doing here. Then you're mapping rebuild rows across everything and writing out the individual pieces, which are the in and out files. And then, so rebuild records is basically taking a record and then, getting a restaurant, turning it into a restaurant and an inspection. So splitting out the data into two maps, and then writing out so the result of this is going to be a bunch of things that have a restaurant, and a inspection, right? And you're gonna have an array of those. That's what you're doing, and then writing out the pieces is going to take the restaurants, vectorize them so you can write them as CSVs, and then write them out to individual files. All right. So, does anybody have any suggestions after looking at this thing? Refactorings that you think Nick should do? Anything else stand out in here?
What's the array map for? What does it do?
I used that because initially when I started this, I cared what order the columns were printed out in, and they're coming out in like an order that wasn't going to work for me. But now that's since dealt with, and it doesn't actually matter.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So I did that. So let's so with an array. Interesting. So you're saying if you use so if I do this is, I think this one, if I do A1, B2, C3, I may get a map with the keys where the iteration is in a different order. So you're saying if I use an array map on there,
it maintains the ordering of the key value pairs.
Wow. Okay.
Did you ever see that in the web? That's cool.
I did. I've actually had that issue with JSON generation before, and because sometimes you just want things to be in a certain order and you can't do that. So I've always passed it as a pair of vectors. I mean, I know I have at least one place in our code at work where I've done that. I know where I've done that in UI code where I was making a table and it was like I want to do the columns exactly like this and I want to have column 1, column 2, column 3. I can't just pass in a map of like field and value without passing in another thing that specifies the order. So I
write Ruby all the time, so I completely, in Ruby, patches they're called patches in Ruby are ordered by default. Like there's not a way to sort of unorder them. And it's been years since I've literally just forgotten that maps don't necessarily have an order. But nicely, you can use it.
Okay. So I guess when I made my suggestions, I took that out, not realizing there was a reason for that. So that's interesting. But you said you had another way to solve that now?
Well, I'm cool with it. I was going to use what I was going to end up using those CSV files for required that they be ordered in a certain way, and that just doesn't matter anymore.
Okay, so you solved it by not. I don't know why I mean, there's no wire here, so.
It's freaking out.
Yeah, sorry if that's causing anyone a mental strain. So okay, so but anyways, you solved it by not caring. Okay. All right, so one of the refactorings that I proposed was if this.
You try a wire to that.
Yeah, I could. Well, here, let me. Since everybody almost everybody has a laptop here, let me. Well, you can actually go to the final version here, and if you want to look at the source, and because Nick's already applied most of the suggested refactorings in here. So I guess maybe to move on, because I want to make sure we have enough time for our code kata time rather than going through everything. I suggested to rewrite this. First, I split out the readers and writers, right? Because rather than putting all the readers and writers together, I split them out. So I separated out reading and I separated out writing of the restaurant. I guess if it keeps up, we may just pause this and move on to the code katas. So we split that out. Notice I suggested, I don't know, I'm curious if other people agree or disagree. Rather than creating one big array with a restaurant and an inspection, I suggested just splitting out the functions to get that inspection or the restaurant data to convert it. And then I suggested cleaning up the one part of the code here that I thought was a little, it was actually, there was lots of places to refactor, but the only part of it that I really sort of cringed at was the split at point part. So what this is doing, this is splitting up the address field. So remember, there's an address and then a new line, and then on the other line there was the lat longs, and so he's doing a split on the parentheses, and then can anybody actually, when you see this code, can anybody figure out what this code is actually doing? I actually had to just run this code several times to figure this one out. So no, it's fine.
I'm looking like that, and I come back and I'm like, what the hell?
No, I've done the same thing. I've written code, but I've come back to it like at later. I'm like, wait, do you actually know any Clojure? Right? Like I'd say this to myself, right? Like
that's a thread.
And then he's associating back in the split of the sub part, or the split of the split of the sub split, but putting back on the original thing and then flattening.
Is that a regex to split or a set?
This is a regular expression literal.
Okay, all right.
So I think that if I were doing this, I would just use one big regular expression for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. That would be my recommendation. But I thought, well, there might be a reason why that you didn't do that, or the data might be a little bit less flexible, so I didn't want to do that. So the way I suggested to solve this, but I think ultimately a regular expression is better, is I said, well, at least you split and destructure out the parts you want. So we split on that /n, and you get the address part and the lat long part, and then split the lat longs on the comma. Right, so it's still doing the same function, just using destructuring to pull those things out rather than munging things around.
Is that associate one? What was that part?
Which one? Associate.
Yeah. In the original code.
Oh yeah, in the original. We've got it over here.
I posted a gist on the meetup page of the original code in case anybody wants to.
Cool. Yeah. So thread last. So I guess we can let's turn this out of here, right? So
this is how it was actually originally.
So you turned it in.
Yeah.
All right.
I thought that was even more absurd.
So last of A. This is going to be so this is the other part. The names they're not really intention revealing, right? So it's like this A is going to be if you look at the destructuring, the first part is, which is why I use the destructuring. The first part is the address part, which is the address. The second is the lat long part, right? So last of B is going to be the lat long, which we're splitting on the commas. And then assoc A1, so he's basically taking, originally the thing has two elements, right? It's got the address and it's got the lat long, and then he's associating at position 1 the split of that. So it's basically going to be address and then lat and long is the final form. That's what this is doing, right?
That's great.
Yeah.
But then flatten.
Then you got to flatten it because, just for good measure.
Yeah. Because this S split is actually gonna wait. Why did we flatten?
So you wanted them all in one.
Yeah, maybe it didn't matter, but I didn't want it all in one thing because of something kind of goes wide.
Oh yeah, no, you're right because you wanted it like this. It's address lat long, right? Because you got first, second, and because there's no third function here, you use last, right? So if there were a third, this is what.
There were only 3 things. First, second, and last. It works.
You could use nth.
Yeah.
Right, or destructuring again, yeah. So you could is it n?
2 or something?
2, yeah.
Yeah.
Second and 2.
Yeah. And okay, so so and it takes the collection and the index, right? So and collection and so yeah, so you could definitely do that, or do some destruction, or use a regular expression to just put things in the right thing. So, but this was definitely the one that I thought had the most room to improve some Clojure style, because I looked at it, I was like, I don't think anybody when they first saw split point knew exactly what was going on there. Plus you have to clean, because you're not using a regex, you've got this trailing, you've got the trailing parenthesis on one, so you had to use clean lat long to here to pull this out. So, all right. So anybody have any other general comments for on the code? I mean I know you probably didn't look at it as long as I did. All right, so well, anyways, that was the original code and the new code are all in the repository. So take a look, and and I'd also be curious if you see something I suggested to change, and you think, well, that's more like personal preference than good Clojure style or something. Bring it up, and because I'd be curious to know what people thought of it. So, all right, well, that was fun. Wait, did John? Oh, you're moved up here. You were in the back, yeah. Yeah, no problem. So John saw this and offered up one of his pieces of code, not for next month, but for June. Yeah. So we're gonna do another refactoring challenge. It's the piece of code we looked at just now.
Yes.
Okay, so he's put the stuff out there. We'll mention it next month, but maybe everybody can just take a look at it and maybe try to refactor it on your own, and we'll talk about some of the things that we saw, so it's not just me. And for the rest of the time, I don't know why this TV is going crazy, but for the rest of the time, we're going to do a code exercise. So the code exercise is on, let me go. And while you're doing the code, while people start working on this, I will see if I can plug in directly to the TV. Refactoring. So we're going to get started on the event. I thought kind of as a series of code katas, we got these Wonderland code katas. So check out the repository locally, and then we're going to work on the alphabet cipher. I think the very first one. This is basically it's a little cipher where you take a keyword and you encode or decode something. So I'm going to suggest, you're welcome to work as an individual, but I would suggest pairing up or even get in a group of 3 people. Is there anybody here who's like so new that they definitely want somebody to work with them? All right, anybody else who's like putting up their hand and say, somebody come work with me? For sure. Okay, well, somebody make sure, what's your name? Pete. So somebody make sure you come over here if you've got a little bit of Clojure and work with him. Is there anybody else who specifically wants somebody to come?
I got Steve here, so I'm
excellent. Okay, so just find the person next to you, or work on your own. Respect your space. Somebody's space. If they don't want to work with somebody, that's fine. And then we're going to work on this. And if you have any questions, we can talk about things as a group. Otherwise, if you solve the code kata, tweet me, Maximo Burrito, and we'll pull out some of people's solutions sort of at the end. I keep trying this purple one that hasn't worked yet. So at Maximo. So tweet me, or actually tweet at Austin Clojure. That's better.
Which doesn't have
Austin Clojure, because.
Probably because already that's weird.
And I'll see if I can get this up. So it's a pretty straightforward one, but there are some tricky. It is it's not a trivial piece of Clojure to write, especially if you don't know all of the things.
Like you can't just even like the syntax highlighter, right? It depends on the connection.
I think there might be an online version, but it's limited, obviously. Not that someone can do a line, you can do line buckle, separate screen thing.
Like modular, no, rotating the
Sure, yeah. I'm trying to see if I even understand what's going on in that thing, so whatever you want. Probably consider it automatically, but I just tried it.
Mine is Clojure on 6.
I'm too, so we're like,
Oh, that's right. Check it out.
But like the first layer is always whatever.
We're actually just using one function for the whole thing.
No, so you just repeat the password.
See with the font, so that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go back to the It's just the best.
That's actually the
So if you could do like a vector vectors. You can do map of maps. Probably yeah, you can probably calculate it. All you gotta do is do like a mod so you can wrap around your map easily.
Look at this, it's efficient, and you can't talk to the test.
So like
you have to make a.
you're taking an A, the first element of whatever, and now you gotta just wrap around.
So
we could do it, and so we can map your stuff through a function. Map your English string through a function and stringify it to get the end.
Or it works one name out the other.
Turn it back into a string. You got your coded message. So that would be so big. So your messages.
What you do is basically inside your
Network problem still?
Yeah.
Capital Factory guest for factory.
So now it's just time to. It comes and goes so much that it's hard right now.
Actually, if you go to
I didn't even. We did the second half of maybe do last time. For those who were. Give it for them, these other ones.
So we could say, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that whatever keyword, like the password text, and just keep repeating that word over and over again. So I'll just say.
So to make this thing, then we have.
We don't need it. We just need to test. We'll take this one. What I was gonna do is try to.
Let's do that. Here, I want to give an example, like a keyword is right? And then that's some good. So that's what you go, okay, so I'll check out message. Oh, yeah. So I got the first one to pull.
Fill in something else.
Oh, I'm gonna download it.
It's like a little table where we say, which column the message is good is find out. Okay, and then you encode
Encode should be pretty easy. I think that what you store is those and you see the line text for letter you want to encode. And then you should do it it's left by the number of positions.
Yeah, but the decode sounded like it was the same thing.
Tear a couple pieces
So
out
we
of
do
there.
the opposite.
Oh yeah, no, that's actually, I hadn't thought about that. I should, when we do these, we should probably have some, I'm gonna grab some printer paper off the print work and bring some scratch papers for people.
So if this was like a 1, 2, 3, you could say stuff 1, 2, 3. So the size of this right list should be more like that. So you're always doing the same thing, but instead of letter and this size of the string, it's gonna if you choose that one list, that's fine for action letters back.
Okay, fine.
So here, basically, so basically, if you see
And then you gotta, that'll be a lazy.
so that they can try to with the message. This string, like this, the message itself was longer than the keyword. So we have to, if you just stop everything and do these, they should repeat. This should return. So
I guess
it's something similar.
we might have to do a backtrack.
That's true.
Like that. So now, if I could do this.
Looks like it's all over. It's literal for a chart. I think it's a
I think I converted to
Okay, like doing like an in function on it.
So otherwise you have to do like, I would say, you just want to look at. You just want to repeat some.
Mod is the mod operator that works.
Oh, I do.
Char is the char is a function.
I think we should.
I think the decode is still takes up. I was looking, we added S transform to N or make E, but then to get
Does an output.
back, you would have to.
Reverse. So it says reverse, which could come to like the opposite here.
Where you're still amplifying. I was thinking maybe, you know, are you gonna be moving one at a time? Okay, so your current position, you find the next position. I'm just putting this straight, basically wherever you are, you know, have to, you're gonna check plus one minus one vector, which is pretty useful.
then I'm gonna go look this map.
Seems like this table is like going there.
Yes, sure, how do you wanna build it?
You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, the
You add this to your map.
You're just gonna check.
No, but this, or you can go ahead.
Well, yeah, that's,
Yeah. Just let it top down and like you can do it, but it's all
If you take the cipher letter, find the column for it.
I guess given this S.
No, if you start from the password letter at the top, you go down into the
So you're sync on that.
So
I want to try to.
Yeah, I'm curious what people.
Do you want to write the
yeah, that's
the key is. In this case, where you use as you have to ask, what do I do as, how far do I have to rotate as?
or no, it's like, it might be,
And
there's like.
the answer is,
Yeah.
That's, I think, what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
so you start with the password letter S, figure out how many rotations you need to get the letter that is being presented in the cipher, and then the row index is the.
I would just map X. Just map vector.
So you're just, because it's only gonna be one row, you give it the result from that.
Yeah, let's
It's gonna give it your password.
It's gonna be
And then one
a
row.
row.
Okay, so it's a lookup, which it's not lookup. But you can export this thing, right? You basically pivot back to the.
And then we're gonna have to process.
So in my case, I have it.
I didn't really look up.
That's exactly right. So I look up, I find the one where the pronunciation
You start at the current letter of the password and move right by one, and when you get to the letter in the cipher, you count how many times you moved right, and that corresponds to the.
Yeah, I remember the basic data like that. Probably
So let's see. So where is this?
Where does it go? A little more, I want to mention.
Oh, because like, because yeah, that's kind of.
The whole point of that was just to make
Iterate between. Where it's at, like,
You can say what we're doing actively, like, actually figuring stuff together, and things like that.
Yeah.
Still in the place,
and once again, what you mean, right?
because we're not gonna check it out. I'm not sure if I'm key out of the command.
That's true.
I
We'll say, well, really,
Yeah.
up until you get right here.
how do we make
Something else, I think.
It takes that.
And so how would you handle that?
think maybe there's an
Which way first one? First one, piece of abstraction, Clojure, like, that doesn't hold here. That's a.
Common System repository.
But if that's given for Windows, then there's actually a plugin.
That helps.
It's alright, can close over. So amazing what that works. Because all that stuff is.
Did you just get
So each parameter storage, it needs to have.
That's a constant.
Is
Yes, you need to find the function. So make it the same signatures as in code. Make keys for keyword message.
I'm just, nobody can figure out the line. 26 letters.
This is the same chart, right, with the keyword.
What's that?
It's the same chart.
Oh.
Is there each function in Clojure to rotate and right?
No, it's just on the side. Oh, he'd asked me about before. Have you used Git Windows at all?
Some of the students at ACC are using Git in Windows.
I've
Does
used
it
it.
have like a default storage directory whenever you clone a repo?
No, it's clones off the current directory. I keep clone somewhere, it just.
We ran it in the Git bin directory and couldn't find it after it cloned it.
Oh, I don't know, I've never ran the command with git bin directory.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you use a vector for the.
It should create a subdirectory of whatever your code is.
Yeah, that's right.
It's underneath that.
We could do.
Is that using the same one or? Just
By
the default.
There's also, because that's the.
You also have to how long it's getting to a repo.
Yeah, that probably would have been quick to
Eight 26 skip and. Offset.
Is it super sort of cool?
So now.
Here, you cover language that's so
So you're running Windows PC?
No, actually, I enjoy that. I actually enjoy that.
They have free version?
Can we all just get along?
No.
Okay, so it's definitely the TV and not anything else, because I'm plugged in now.
Yeah, the TV's changing channel. You see it.
Somebody pressed
I don't know, maybe, is it like on Calibrate or something, auto scan to find channels or something?
Did somebody kick it off?
I don't know. Maybe it's the output from one of these is
Yeah, things are dying, so it's like you're not gonna.
Downstairs.
Yeah, I got the coding number.
Maybe we should keep track of it.
Yeah, power has the key.
So call that, right? Should match that also to the characters. And we can see the consistent for each of those, we're gonna put the respective filter. What was that? So like our first, like quick and dirty, then could just be it.
Yeah. Test cases there. Oh, you're saying no, so lowercase ones are higher.
So I would say that maybe I could just.
It's a letter. So basically, we just generate it.
Take that letter, go around, something pops that key, right? Okay, so let's say,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait, that's upward.
yeah. So okay, so just to get the first element.
Yeah.
Which is called first. So to destructure, right? Yeah, that's the first.
No, that's the first one. That's the next time I just did.
Oh, you want everything except for the first one?
This one, I'm wearing like. Maybe there's like a last or something.
It may be my
Yes, you can call last, but you want the first and the rest, right? So there's rest of ST.
Alright,
so we'll have we can get a sequence here.
Get one more.
Sure. So like what you started with. So if you pass it, in a list, so it would be like. So the destruction of if I'm understanding correctly here, so the destructuring for that would be so you're going to pass in a list. So you could say the head and the tail, right?
Because basically, I mean, I'm just trying to create the nice stuff things. So this will do it, like it'll rotate the alphabet list.
So we call something 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry.
So I forgot drop off the thing. It's like forgetting that sometimes they're all over.
No, it should be. Oh, because I passed in a.
So is it just?
It's just a stride.
It was actually doing like this, like that, right? Yeah. And if do you mean if it's the first argument though? Did you want the first case? So you want the. Okay, so that then you would do it like. So normally you would just do it like this, but it would be like head and tail, right? Or we'll call it first and second here.
So then we can just basically,
So that works.
So if we call something of, 10 and 20, like that, right? But so the idea is that this is matching the first argument, and then it's pulling the first item and the second item out of that one.
Right.
So the extension would be if you had two of them, yeah.
I didn't know if you could only do that.
So
I don't know what you're.
like that, right? So you can do that on each argument. You can destructure arbitrarily.
Oh, like
Yeah, like,
I'll call column. So you get character you get.
So like if our number here is 25.
Like you show.
Pretty clever. Taking me
Right, right,
figured it out.
As long as you're not using the character.
Touch on it.
But since I know it would, and then you can just use the next one. Just put 10. That's pretty cool. You just put 10.
Try to calculate every one of them. I just want to
Chad, make that map.
So I think we'll do that.
Oh. Still
oh no, do I bar editor turn on?
Like generate this line for the word you're looking for, and then find the index of the letter that you have, and then just move over.
How's that letter?
Got it.
Yeah.
Got the letter you're looking
Well,
Yeah, actually.
for. And I've got a map that has the, well, it's not really but
I'm just thinking about what we have to add on this,
because it will go out of bounds. But
83. No.
I like it. I don't know where I was going.
Both of the lines.
You can just do a quick test.
Okay.
language that I'm not really
It's
good at. I'm just like,
42.
what do I think?
Yeah.
It's like I know how to
Yeah.
solve problems,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm finished with it already.
The smallest steps are
It's
like.
like, that's why you see stuff that I wrote in actually lazy variable names, because I'm just like, I just need to get it all.
Yeah.
And then it worked, and then once it worked, I was like, Norman, help. I just tweeted at him, I was like, dude, God help me, I just need to do better.
Yeah, okay, so.
For the ranges between the subs.
What's that? It's really like a solve. So you take, how does the like the coding of it works? I'm just coding it like as a class. So you need to, fortunately, this is sort of like repeated videos that you
Yeah, so you use cycles.
I'll buy it.
You definitely need cycles.
But then I'm just gonna turn it into a sequence so that I can go there and like there. Just because I'm comparing like.
Yeah, so what I did for the outer level thing is I did a cycle on the keyboard.
So we did that too. We just went to a
I'm
kind
have
of
some
something
fun
on.
with encoding characters, I'm not that bothered. Because the keyword could be shorter than the string.
Right. So that's what you do. It's like just going slow.
Yeah, so that's your cycle forward.
Oh, you just take as many as you need if it's longer.
When you do math, I'm mathing in one code, so it stops whenever you need one.
Oh, when it exhausts the list, yeah.
Either one.
That's one of the tricks that happens. Like, just the way, I just believe this is a common thing, but I just
Yeah.
like multiple lists,
Yeah.
as many as you want,
Yeah.
and it creates this weird fucking thing.
Yeah.
And actually, I still, I don't know, it's just bizarre. It's
You
like,
didn't, so, I mean, it's like, I forget about it. Cold freehand, it's gonna function, take the whole floor. That's the thing, is where you need something that takes two exactly to already and it two lists. It's not there.
So there's the
but then there's one you get back,
Plus,
plus
somebody
there
else
were,
that's what
the mix of those and another one.
but the minus doesn't have to, so it's the
You
message.
get back a single,
Minus.
You get a vector of vectors, or you get a
and
sequence.
those
of
vectors, the
vectors.
number of elements, so is the number of lists you will find.
Oh, sorry, CD.
It's like this.
You get
Oh, I
back,
guess that depends on what.
it depends on what your function is. Yeah, right, you get back everything that you want. So in this case, it's gonna return a single character, you get back a sequence of characters. But earlier I made it my vector, so that is the
This is good. So this shows like which tests failed, so where I guess we're gonna go and fix these.
I
So,
Tests.
Resource
You test.
okay, so the next one, that's just a second one for we're not used to.
Yeah.
But that should be part of the box. So make a mod,
Yeah.
and it's a key.
All the examples are gonna be lower table.
My first way.
quality for set members.
I figured out that if you have S and password, if you find this distance,
So I was trying to test that against the same.
M is the,
Please compliment that.
you've got S and password, so and then using the cipher, so I'm taking this distance here, and then the distance, basically this distance wrapping it around to it. And that's, the distance I need to get the clear text letter M. I was trying to figure out how to write the right.
So it's like.
So I just put
It always looks good, but you kind of like that, I'm like, shit.
You start with I for,
But it's like,
you start with I for your and always have an I.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Because it looks like an error every time you look at it.
Okay, so it's I minus I is 0 or something. I was like, okay, well, what about?
I've got it.
It's like,
If you have another S to use.
Okay, well, J minus I is 1, that's the second row. Okay, well, the actual
No, but
data
okay.
minus cipher gives me my index, my row index. Does a wrap, so that I check mod of minus 1 is the wrap or whatever. So the wrapping part of it.
And then that would be the end of the square bracket.
The test field.
I
I think I'm on the right track.
Okay. And then that
J is the key.
the key should be the vector of I and J together. So we need to translate that. It'll just be like character from I plus
Help me in my
Basically modeling UI, models Java, UI's Java effects, and then now I got interested in Clojure.
we have for that whole thing, but we need to grab J, so it's a trucking company.
And then the kind of same thing as you, work's going pretty good, so we're going through the getting work.
Well, I think we probably already made it. It's kind of boring, but I think it's good work.
So what is this? The street.
One of those,
Reverse operation.
This is the other thing. Plus, if I have some sort of like error.
I think it's not gonna make it.
It just helps me.
I actually have been getting my error messages. I don't know how long.
Number of.
I was wondering if that was.
I only remember that because I had to look at exactly that thing. What you remember when you write it. And somebody said use it because I never used it.
Okay. And you have to look up whether it was one base or zero base.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. How is it pretty bad?
That is. You're good at concentric.
Oh, yeah. Because it's the last estimation.
I think it's right.
Yeah.
I have the market break, right?
Yeah, ZA would be Z, right?
It's not as awesome.
But you can look, it's got the thing up here, right? Where is it?
Alright, I think we got it. We figured it out. I figured out how we do it.
Yeah, ZZ is Y. It's on the table.
We mapped our two things as a function to get a pair. So you just take that pair and plug into that to look up.
Let's change the result of this.
How do you write it? Just open bracket.
Oh, so applies, okay, yeah. No, this will map this.
Okay, just a vector.
So we give it the two sequences, two strings.
I just want to map all my input characteristics into function.
This
Yeah,
one,
just
cyclic
open bracket. Yeah, first item, space, second item.
I'm guessing, so mapping would be just a single character per iteration, right? So.
No, that would be a map. So use a,
So,
use a
ooh, I'm
script
down like
language.
that.
Yeah.
But that's not like. Was this like?
Oh, he started back here.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what we want to do. Inside the rental tax.
That's true.
Wait,
Yeah, well, I have to pass the character of the pass one. So if I was to write a map,
It's like a three people or you could make that little record. There's nothing that says like is exactly what
It's mapping factors.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make that with a record.
Okay.
Set record, and you can have a record.
Yeah, actually, well, that makes sense. That's like a
A record essentially is going to
Your what?
right?
So,
You can,
trying to remember. Would it work for you if you map a function that takes the argument over
here's a map index which so if we so it looks like
My slurping doesn't work, I get a 0.
Yeah, I swear.
So, part of it's a full
Yes.
9, slurp.
You can see the test code.
Just the number.
So I can't say it. I have to type it. So
Can you have the, so like if this is the password and this is the cipher and pass.
yeah. So for me, it's control right
after from each one, each position.
Control.
Like this is going to.
Did that work for you?
It's going to take the ith from each of them and pass it to the function.
Oh, so you can ask it more than one thing, but then you're going to have this make sure that this is the proper language, right?
Right, but so you don't.
So could you
I could, I just needed, to make sure it's bigger, but I was just going to say, hey, give me this bigger, and then it would, the function, the char function would.
and then type
It would make
edit,
grab it on password, whatever the password is. So I was going to do it.
Okay, edit dash forward.
Then you could do this.
What if you make it up? Take a screen and say, hey,
Yeah, that'd be nice.
No, that's a different one. So edit forward dash. Control H for help. F for function. Edit dash forward.
But it looks like the math index.
There's so many people.
So yeah, it should be control right.
I know this.
Sometimes your control right doesn't work. You got it bounce something. And your control, are you in a terminal in the map? Yes, okay. So I will have to show you. You can't
I was trying to come up with ways to use the range characters. Yeah, you're not really using to find where you are. Just to create a row on demand. So instead of creating a big map, we'll actually create the row on demand and figure out what character. Yeah. Anyways, that's what I was saying. 2 characters. But I'm getting myself lost. So.
I think that's the encryption problem. It seems trivial when you're not.
Right.
I don't want to copy.
There you go. I was doing that.
Yeah, it's a little tricky with terminals. Slurp. Did you barf?
I did not bark yet, but maybe soon. Depending on the slurp.
That's the best name.
How about this? But there's like a lace with a way to turn strings to strings
Yeah, that's what I use. That's a good. Only use like.
I just wanted to see like.
What did we have?
I guess I'm cold.
I pretty much can't undo.
Is going to be.
Well, there's one thing about that.
It's a string.
So see what,
Actually, it's one thing. It's a message on the pass. And then what we're going to do is we're going to
We don't know.
and we're going to take our pairs and we're going to push them through.
using the
Get in.
It wasn't working for you.
It was, but I had a secret of those, not just a list of those. So that's where the apply comes in. Apply there. Yeah, if you do that, that seems to work. I think that'll work. So last year, I got Alright, so we can encode.
Yeah, your decoder function.
Main keys.
Yeah.
Basically,
If you had come to my thing last Monday, it was really good too.
I really want to come back, unfortunately. But never found a hack house. I go to everything and then I end up with like 2 people in it. And then I saw there was like 40 hours and people like that. It's like, whoa, we've never had
A dozen people.
More people showed up at the end.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. It was fun.
Like a namespace, you quote this whole thing in namespace.
I still don't really know how
as
What do I want to do
we
locally?
could really thought of it.
right, and then
And that's really
and
like
then
in the end of
That's all that matters for the audience. Did you enjoy yourself?
Exactly. I mean, I can't. Am I my audience's keeper? Yeah, I mean, they can figure it out.
So I basically just like created this little this function basically creates these rows based on the letter you give it. And so what I went through was I like turned each thing into a sequence and this just sort of like created a map of list of indices to look up in one of those rows. You would have to just get that map over and look up.
Oh, you know what?
So you don't actually need a seq there because it's a string. The string is already a seq.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's right.
Keyword, no. So the keyword and message are string. So in your REPL, do like count and then a string, right?
And it'll still do it, yeah.
Just checking.
It's not.
Well, no, because you have it. No, you're
gonna have to always.
Yeah. So I just leave off as a message seek business.
What is it? Is it spelled?
Yeah, there are test cases.
Yeah.
So I can try to do that.
Let's do the details.
Paying to run the test on my, that's what I call it.
How are you doing it?
I'm waiting.
Yeah, in Emacs, if you go to the sort, or no, you're at 9.
Yes, of course.
That sounds like I'm run that test. Or in your REPL, if you it'll take a while to start up. So if you REPL to the test namespace, if you go to that and just do run test, then you don't have to wait for them.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So I'm sure there's some BI test thing that does the same thing, but I don't know what improvement.
Oh, can't do that thing like that. We're figuring out the end, I just took one quick
Let's just wait. Sometimes when I get in,
the space does getting your number here.
Basically, if you like to look up.
Yeah, used to.
That's what
Yeah, I have it.
But you tell me more.
each key in it.
If you reverse
So because you can just set the regular alphabet into the thing and then just do a lookup. Oh, that's way
if you reverse top and lines here, just so that it's 1%, 1%, 2, you can get rid of it. So map in lines top.
Wait,
So it'll take the first element and the second element. This will be the element 1, element 2, and then you just map it.
Put in all the documents.
So top of the function.
I think put a little to do. That's what you were trying to get to. You're saying you're having trouble visualizing that flag.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Yeah. This is my.
Yes. No, I knew about it. It's just like last in, first out. So are you making them fly?
Yeah, I mean, I've done lots.
I think it's baked in for us. What is all this? If I take that out, yeah, so what the
There's only like a list of
that's how I did it. I've done this once before, and that's how I did it.
Yeah, I hadn't really. Yeah, I already tweeted mine.
Oh, I knew it. Twitter. Too much like subtracting. Mine is an A.
I went on the last.
I thought it was April Fool's. Because they posted what kind. I almost, if their food was not so good, I would have been slapped them. Each one of them personally, posting true things that you're closing. Cannot announce your closing.
That's part of the thing. Yeah, people got a business. They announce that fucking business.
As many of you are. You are a liar.
It's too funny.
This is a cleaner version of how I did it the first time. It's a whole lot of scratchy shit.
Followed by buying it the second night. Any of the collections.
Don't like it.
So our cycle, the cycle here. You can just but our message is
I don't know. Really hard to figure out what's that is not a October, it's about
No.
It's like one of my students came up, we don't see any use problem, but maybe one of the things, one of our students really like stabilized solutions for it, and then was just like, good luck trying to make this. I don't know if that's what it works. So you can stabilize out JavaScript.
That's which part of it? Or just the overall of what it's doing? Because I agree that it doesn't explain why it's doing anything. It just simply doesn't. So I'm wondering, is it the code that's not? Is it the code itself, or is it like how it's?
I guess it's probably honestly, that's why I said it's just me. It's manipulated, sort of have a better understanding of
Because like, yeah, exactly. So when I look at this, I would look at this and say, okay, character to number. I don't know why I'm converting a character to number, but it should, to me, it makes charge of one same thing.
That's why we got the colors like this.
And if I read it, I'll realize, oh, I'm converting it so that A's but there's no documentation that would be better. And there's nothing that explains what the So encode by, so here's your key and here's the character, so encode using a key as a specific character, decode using a key as a specific
The fact that you've completed this.
but I also, it's not even on, but character to, I'm converting the character to a number, I'm adding the key number on 26 to a number of characters. But I agree that it's not obvious why you're doing it.
Oh, yeah, this is literally what I'm doing.
Which one? Oh, it's the same thing, just sort of backwards.
The zip map is different.
Filter only.
I'll have to refactor that out later.
The part I'm not, well, I don't love using the threading here because I think it's not, like, this is a sequence of operations, but they're not parallel. I prefer to use a threading macros only when things are not parallel. Like you're doing, so like, obviously you would do it, but like if they were all add 5, add 6, something like that, they're all the same.
Oh, yeah.
Character to number, and then I'm adding the number of the character. Yeah, because you're changing what it is. It's not like if you were taking a set of, so if I had a person record and it's like increment age by 1, increment salary by 100, keyword or something like that, it takes a person, returns a person, like that's the sort of thing that I like, because it's all right? So I prefer to, but yeah, that was just something else. If I did it, what I should really do is probably figure out some way to express that better. And I don't love it's so sort of a jumble.
My first one ever.
Yeah.
Probably kicked off.
It's so you. I'm not call like 1,000 other people. I'm just gonna have to create stuff.
Yeah, you can recursively.
You just like, as I diversify it, I get more,
There's a couple of ideas. Hopefully will in the future be not every
I find it.
there's like 7 I'm a little concerned with this one because some of these are a little bit more. It's last time we did the same place. And those are like those are more like 5-minute ones, and these are more like 30-minute ones. So I'm wondering, whether or not,
Oh, that's a reference. I like
because scholars never use Java.
Basically, what they're on is where basically just like fundamentally.
Yeah, you can always complete it in the environment.
It's already.
Also,
We'll probably might tell them
a lot of projects that I might want to use if they haven't had any experience on yet.
I just did it decided. Make sure that it was
So my second
there wasn't something
growing kind of pretty good work. It may be easily outpaced by scholars.
because a couple of them I was thinking, a couple of them were
Like I say, I think a lot of people are scholars and dominant carry. It's designed specifically so you can take this Java, Java apps that you write in Java, pretty much as it is, recorded currently in Scala. So Java devs need like all you get to the shield, but they don't necessarily know what but that doesn't, exactly, but you don't necessarily write, just write
I think it's not much for it.
That's
why I've been trying to like get people out of everything.
It's just kind of like PHP. You got a lot of devs doing it. It doesn't say it's but I think because of its popularity,
I just learned this.
moving from Java into Scala,
We want a tree out.
Scala will say like,
So what are we supposed to do after the
tweet it out, or actually maybe, because I can't see all the ones from Austin Clojure, because that's actually Sam manages the account, so you might post it on the meetup page. Yeah, so we have to, we need to be wrapping up just because we do need to get out of the room. So if you have a solution, if you have a solution of something, maybe just put it on the meetup. You can tweet it, but I actually realize I can't see everything that is tweeted to Austin Clojure.
You should be able to search
Like,
for.
go to /Austin Clojure.
Yeah, you can just search for Austin Clojure.
Search for it in Twitter.
Yeah, just search for it.
All right. See, you can tell I use Twitter.
It may work. We'll see.
What?
It may work.
Okay, there's one. Did somebody else send one? I thought somebody just did.
I just sent one.
We just keep walking through.
Yeah, see.
Oh, I sent mine in reply to you actually.
Okay.
But it's on the meetup wall.
Okay. Let's pull some of these. I'll pull this one. Put it wherever you want to.
Like put it sort of up on a disk or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why do I keep coming to the wrong one? Oh, several. Okay. One, two.
I think you could
Just us. It's the same point.
yeah. Eventually, what it's going
All right, so I've got
We've got it.
I got one, I've got reload the page. That was mine. I will. I'll look again for more solutions. So look at Brad's first, I guess. All right. So you want to tell us anything about here? Anything interesting? You're creating you're building out the whole table, right?
So what I'm doing is I'm taking an infinite cycle of the alphabet and then I'm building up the row, or I'm building the row by offsetting to the key to the first character and then taking 26 after that.
Oh, okay. So you're just building the one row.
The single row.
Right.
Then I'm mapping that with the original cycled alphabet so I can get the map to look it up.
Okay, cool. And decode.
The exact same, but the zip map is the other way around.
Zip map offset to alpha. Oh, so yeah, so you're because the reverse is basically change the columns and apply encode character cycle keyword. All right, excellent. Any other solutions?
I got one on Twitter.
Okay, so encode character. So you're taking the math approach.
Take a while.
To index to character encode. So encoding is adding the keys. Decoding is subtracting the key. Line 26. Get key card.
That was to get like the wrapping key, the character of the wrapping keyword.
Okay, so get.
It's like you pass in the keyword and then say keyword is 5.
Okay, because you're.
It gives me basically an
like so index is going to be like 0, 1, 2, but it might exceed the.
It might exceed the length of the keyword, so that lets me wrap it around.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So that makes sense. Yeah, I think the other.
No, mine's not.
Yours is not up yet.
No.
Right, well, let me know when it is. Yeah, I solved the keyboard problem the way that Brad solved it, which is with the cycle function.
I was thinking, does that return like an infinite sequence of?
Right. Yeah. So if you cycle 1, 2, 3, well that's gonna be infinite. So take 100, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So if I cycle a string, right?
So it takes a seek and returns a lazy seek.
Yeah. So
Gotcha. Okay.
PAS, right?
I was thinking there would be a way to read that.
Sorry, I didn't jump in.
Don't know my Clojure, so.
Yeah, no. That's
So that's called cycle.
yeah, cycle I think is a really interesting. Cycle is one of those ones that you don't get to use it very often, but when you do, you're like, I am the functional master. All right. So anybody? Was there another one that I was looking for? No. Did anybody that didn't submit a solution try a different approach from what we were doing?
Oh no, I did the same thing with you with the cycle.
Cycle. Did anybody try anything that one of the solutions that we showed didn't try?
Can we make a big map section?
So you guys were so Brad took and made just the one row, but you made the whole map, right?
Yeah, we made the whole map, and it was like you had a lookup onto a row and column.
That's what we did too. We did like a get in on a map that was 2 entities.
Yeah.
Ours was one layer deep.
If you have the right
We just did a single character encryption decryption routine and then just
mapped across. Right. Yeah. So like this one. Oh, this was still Brad. So like decode char, encode char, and map across. Yeah. So so I think this is to me this is the kind of this part here is what makes intuitive sense, and then how you do the encode or decode, whether you do it with a table or
experimenting
what.
with PMAP versus.
So probably Brad's solution here is the most efficient one because it does, in terms of building a table out, it's probably, because you're really only going to need the one value. Although if it's lazy, if all your seeks are lazy, that stuff's not ever going to get evaluated. So it actually might not be. It depends on how you do it. So
I like how concise it is though. You can list the 20 lines of code you got.
Yeah, and then, I think it does make sense. So.
How do we get to all these gifs? Can we find you on Twitter?
Yeah, so I think most people also put theirs on the meetup page. So, or some people also put theirs. Oh, there was one more. There's
Maybe I could.
okay, so this is yours, right? Super? Is this you? Or death is grind free? So you had a single. This was actually a different approach. You had a single encode decode function that just, and you altered the keys that how it comes in. Excellent. Yeah. So I hope everybody had fun working on this. We'll every couple months we'll toss in some coding because I really think it's good to hear from people, but it's even better to sit down and write some code and to explore. Yeah. So. Excellent. So they want us out of here at 9, and it's past 9. So if you still want to talk, just head downstairs. We usually head to the bar thing downstairs.
But if